Welcome to my channel. My name is Amar. This is Authentic Self Guide. In today's video I'll be talking about how it's very probable we've inherited most of our psychological and emotional problems from our ancestors. This includes social anxiety, depression, low self-worth, among many others. So this is the idea that trauma is passed on from generation to generation. It is called transgenerational trauma or intergenerational trauma. Western medicine is really beginning to recognize this as a factor and has been conducting a lot of research in this area. Before we get into that, I just want to say that shamanistic energy healing, shamans you may have heard of, have been around for thousands of years, and this is something that they had identified, but for them it was something more energetic, and our energy was being passed on from generation to generation. Now Western medicine has actually been able to get it down to the DNA and really see what's going on there on a molecular level. So that's really the kind of paradigm I want to present it to you from. So just to help paint the picture of how this occurs, I'm going to use the example of the Holocaust, which obviously happened around World War II. Researchers have found that survivors of the Holocaust seem to have passed on their trauma to the following generations, and this has been seen as far along as their great-grandchildren. Now, there's no real logical explanation for this. How could someone who didn't experience anything like what the original trauma sufferers did be having these emotional problems in their lives now? So what the researchers have found is that when we suffer trauma, this is any type of trauma, certain genes in our DNA get switched on. Once these genes are switched on, they start to be transcribed. Transcription means they are replicated in all of our cells. So then we start to live out this programming that has been wired into us on a DNA level. Then naturally we pass this along to our offspring and children, and they pass it on to theirs. However, what the researchers have found is that this DNA, once it is passed on, it isn't immediately active. It just means we have a predisposition, we are susceptible to taking on these trauma-related characteristics. So let's say you've inherited some of these trauma-inducing genes. Now, you may have a less than adequate childhood, but nothing dramatic, nothing traumatic, nothing too bad, but that would potentially be enough to make you begin transcribing these trauma-related DNAs. Also, if you maybe got picked on at school, or you were scared one time, something bad happened, whatever, these little triggering events would probably be enough for you to begin developing some of these traumas. It could be like anxiety or depression or a lack of worth, whatever it is. The point is, trauma has been going on for thousands of years. People have been suffering, and this has probably been getting passed on for many generations, God knows how long. Oftentimes what I have seen working within psychotherapy and for a long time is that oftentimes people won't even have had much trauma in their lives. They can't pinpoint anything. Their lives objectively seem to have been reasonably pleasant, like okay, but they still exhibit things like depression and anxiety, and we really have to start to look deeper and see where this is coming from. And I think intergenerational trauma may hold some of the clues that we are looking for. It also allows you to disidentify from your story. Again, I've seen people who are on the healing journey who get so caught up in their own story. But if we could begin to realize that maybe we just inherited some genes that have made us more susceptible to having these dysfunctional behaviors. Because the opposite is also true. If your ancestors before you were quite happy and content, they would be more likely to produce offspring who will also have these positive qualities as well. So it's a big area of research that has been going on for the last 10 years, and I just think it really holds some clues. The reason I come across this was actually during an ayahuasca ceremony. I had this come to me that some of the things that I was dealing with was actually transgenerational stuff, and I've actually been able to link one of these things back as far back as one of my grandparents. So I'm able to see it, and I don't recommend that people spend years exploring this, but if you're able to identify, maybe you can see something in your parents or before them, then you can just see where it came from, and I think that's quite freeing. Because a lot of the time we like to blame, we may blame our parents or blame someone for doing something to us, but what we have to begin to recognize is that everyone is a victim. Everyone, whether you like it or not, is doing the best they can in that situation, in that scenario. Obviously from our perspective and hindsight, it may not look like that, but this is kind of the awareness and consciousness we have to start bringing in to our own life, so we can start to detach from these negative experiences. Looking at this from an even deeper perspective, we could even consider the possibility that it is our destiny to deal with these problems. If these have been going on for thousands of years, some of these traumas get passed on for many, many generations, then they have to come to an end. And it's our job right now to take a stand as conscious warriors and stop this trauma from going any further. If you can imagine, if everyone in the world did that, it would transform the world literally in 10, 20 years. I don't know, but in a short period of time. So I'll probably do a second video on how to begin healing this trauma, because if it's wired into your DNA, naturally it's going to be quite a lot of work. So that is something I'm learning more about, and I'll hopefully be able to present that information to you once I learn how to do that. But that is all from me in this video today. If you resonate with anything I've talked about here, or maybe you don't really believe what I'm talking about, then please feel free to hit me up in the comments. I would just love to hear your perspective and take on this subject. Otherwise, if you want to see more of me talking about these types of things, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and I'll hopefully see you again on the next one. And remember, stop letting the ego run your life, because it will ruin your life. Stay blessed. Thank you.